Well, Congressman Peter King's hearings on Muslim extremism causing major controversy this week and getting pretty personal. One dad who spoke at the hearings blamed extremist Muslims for radicalizing his son Carlos.
Some Muslim leader had taken advantage of my son. He was manipulated and lied to. They set him up to tell him that he could teach English in a British school in Aden. Carlos ended up in a training camp run by terrorists.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser also testified before Congress on Thursday. He says imams are partially to blame for the radicalization of Muslims in America. Joining us is the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Dr. Jasser joins us this morning. Nice to see you, Doc.
Nice to be with you. Thanks for having me.
One of the goals that Congressman Peter King tried to do with these hearings, he told us here on Fox and Friends before the hearings unfolded, was he wanted to bring more awareness to the Muslim community that this is a Muslim problem, that they need as a community to stand up and try to tackle this issue. Do you think he was effective?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we finally began a conversation, and once you set aside the vitriol and the theater, you know, we came into this looking for solutions. We realized that the vast majority of American Muslims are patriotic. They're here to try to solve the problem. But the dialogue so far has just been, well, it's just a problem of violence. Every Muslim I know would turn in somebody right about to blow up something or who's going to commit an act of violence. But we haven't solved the problem. We've been failing. Over the last few years, over 220 terror arrests have happened. 180 of them are Muslim, and we're just less than 2% of the population, so there's a problem. And the hearings began to look at some anecdotes and look at some solutions that we as Muslims can begin to tease apart what the problems are.
Let's get specific on that point, because I think that's really interesting. As you say, most of the focus has been just on the violence, just radical Islam. But you say more attention needs to be paid to the slippery slope of radicalization, stopping it years before. How does that happen? Do you think the hearings were effective in that way?
I really think so. I mean, my testimony, the written testimony that was extensive, that was entered into the record, and in my discussions with both sides of the aisle, I saw, set aside some of the vitriolic stuff, most of the question and answer with both the Democrats and the Republicans looked at, well, Dr. Jasser, what do you mean about political Islam? What is that? What's the slippery slope? And I discussed with them, just as Prime Minister Cameron has eloquently talked about in Britain, many Muslims are being led by imams that tell them that the West is not part of them, is not Islamic, is not able to identify with who they are, so they get separated from it, and they begin to build this idea that the Islamic State is better than the West, that Americans and Westerners are not equal to them. There's a supremacist ideology. I mean, Imam Awlaki, before he became a rabid jihadist, was actually preaching in mosques in Denver and San Diego and Northern Virginia, and you know, many stayed silent, and he was not exactly preaching love
and one of the things
that
I found interesting from your testimony was this idea that Muslims in some quarters in the United States don't even believe in the separation of church and state. That's what America is founded upon, and they don't understand that as well, do they?
It's interesting. They believe in it while they're here, but yet when they apply it to where Muslims are a majority or where they would run the law, they say, well, in Islam you can't separate mosque and state because the Prophet never did. This schizophrenia, this duality is what's creating radicalization. Now, make no mistake, most Muslims are here because we want to separate mosque and state. But we also can't deny the fact that that ideology of mixture, that pre-Enlightenment mixture of mosque and state or Islamic law and society, that inability to say that Islam has come to terms with the Establishment Clause is the core of what leads towards radicalization, and we have to have a conversation and a strategy as a nation on how to prevent that.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, we appreciate you joining us this morning, and thanks for your testimony on Thursday. It was pretty enlightening.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Coming up here.